I guess we began to move toward a more sustainable lifestyle when we were living in an old house in Ottawa. It was built around 1915. And I don't know if you recall that period, Gwen.
Well, it was our first house, and it was huge, and it was not insulated properly, and we were spending, large sums of money on oil heating. So we spent a lot of time retrofitting that house, putting bad insulation in the attic and insulating the walls and replacing windows. And through that process, we began to understand how, to be more sustainable, you had to be aware of all these things and try to reduce your costs. At that time, it was an economic measure for us then, but it certainly made a big difference, those small things that we did to try and save energy.
We made a substantial reduction in our monthly heating costs, but no matter what we did, it was still a drafty house, and quite cold in the winter and expensive to heat after all the projects we undertook in order to retrofit it. So that made us think that there must be a better way rather than trying to retrofit an old house, which got us thinking along the lines of building an energy efficient house from the ground up. I guess one thing led to another, didn't it? It wasn't a sudden decision overnight, was it?
We sort of fell into it almost in a way with this property, because we had to decide whether to build at the road where the hydro was or down here where we would have to bring lines in. So we began to think more and more of a sustainable, greener, much greener lifestyle. That's something that went far and beyond what we had done in Ottawa, but we were curious to look into that.
Once you decide to live off-grid, having a sustainable lifestyle is less of an option than a necessity. Living on grid, it's still something one can do and should do. But once you've decided to live off the grid, it's something that you pretty well have to do.
We got a lot of our information from books. We read Wayne Grady's The Green Home, which was published, I think, sometime in the 90s. And we did some research on the internet. And we came upon this architect through our research and looked at work that he had done, in particular a house in Toronto, which is off-grid right in downtown Toronto and Riverdale. And so those were most of our sources of information, I think.
That's right, and we did a lot of internet research on every phase of the construction, so that was certainly very valuable to us. Well, my mother had the right advice back when I was a teenager, but I wasn't in a mood to listen at the time. She said, if you're not using it, turn it off. And that still is the simplest thing one can do, and it has no cost to it. In fact, it actually saves you money almost always. But that's something we still do every day. We always are turning things off when we're not using them. And I think that's the simplest and most effective rule. Well, I guess they divide into two sets of technologies. One is what we call the passive solar, and the other is what we call the active solar.
Well, the passive solar is basically just sitting there, and it does stuff. So we positioned the front of the house with all the windows due south to get the maximum amount of sunshine coming in the windows. And that is called passive solar, and so it comes in. And the other thing we did was we have concrete sills in the windows, around the windows. So it hits that, especially in the winter when the sun is lower, it comes in lower angle, hits the concrete, warms up the concrete, and then that heat stays in there and radiates out over a period of time. Same thing with the black granite countertops in the kitchen. It's black, so the maximum capacity to pull the sun in and keep it in. Concrete floors. And then the green roof was another thing that it helps keep the house cooler in the summer, because you've got 6 inches of soil on top of the house, which helps to keep the hot air out. Of course, the straw bale on the north side and the east side.
So what those passive things do is allow the house to function and its occupants to be comfortable at a very low level of energy usage. Then you can use what we call active features, such as solar photovoltaic panels, solar hot water panels, and a wind turbine to provide that 20% of energy quite efficiently. So although you wouldn't probably want to use those technologies in a home that wasn't energy efficient in the way that Gwen described, once you get it down to 20–25%, then you can use these technologies quite effectively to provide that lower level of energy for a comfortable lifestyle.
Another thing we found moving to the country is that people have these expansive lawns, you know, acres and acres of grass. And we actually have more grass than we wanted to, and we'll probably convert a lot of it, more of it, to gardens. But they're out there day and, you know, into the evening on their riding gas-powered lawnmowers, cutting all this grass. If you go in the city, you'll find more and more, at least what we've seen, people are converting their small front yards to gardens. They have very little grass, and I think it's a real shame that people have done that for two reasons. One is the energy usage, the noise level of all this machinery in the countryside where you come to be quiet, and you know, not getting exercise. People are sitting on these lawnmowers, and you know, it's not very good exercise. So anyway, all combined, I think, you know, cutting back on lawns would be a major boon to the environment.
One other thing, even if you don't want to put panels on your roof, is simply switch your hydro billing over to Bullfrog Power. What that does, first of all, it makes sure that all the power that's used in your home is sourced through renewable sources such as wind and microhydro.